Glow No Boy. So pretty much what I'm going to be doing on this recording slash video is I'm going to be talking about the four most important categories of gameplay you need for Apex Legends. I'm not really going to be doing like a how to play or like a introduction necessarily. I'm just going to be telling you the most important tips that you need to be successful in Apex Legends and stuff like that. So number one, the most important thing I would say is you have to make sure that your settings are good. So I know that these for certain people can be varied, but I know that for depending on what control you have, vibration off can be good, but I use vibration on. And then this is important because if you don't want the screen to move without touching the stick, then you have to put that setting on. But that's besides the point. The main settings I want to be talking about are these called ACLs, and I also turn this off, just the overall movement and aiming. And I also want to talk about the field of view, how zoomed out, because this is extremely important. So I think first I'll start with the field of view. So pretty much it's how far your view is zoomed out. So for example, let's say I go back to 100. You see how the screen zoomed back in. So pretty much what this does is that it allows you to yeah, you see how my aim's like very wonky now. Pretty much what it does is that it allows you to pretty much set, because it goes from 70 all the way to 110. So it pretty much allows you to set, let's say, how much field of view you want. And on Apex, this game is very movement based as well. So something I would say I would recommend is definitely using a higher field of view. And this is definitely important because there's a lot of people that play this game that don't know about this. So they rock with this called 70 FOV, which you do not want to use, because as you can see, at least how zoomed in it is by default, like my aim is extremely wonky now because see, which is bad because your movement, you see, I can barely move. I can't even move nearly as quick as I could before, but it's very zoomed in. So I think ultimately what you want to do is, personally, I use 106 because I like it, because it's like the ultimate balance of movement and aim. But personally, you want to find a balance between the two. So I would say, like, for example, if you are more of a, if you want to have just more better aim, you'd probably lower the FOV to maybe like 96. You see, so then now it's a little more like, you can see a little better, but you can still move. But personally, I think the higher the better. Now, max, I don't know about that unless you're like super, like, good. I don't think you need that, but yeah, or like you're like a PC player or something like that. Yeah, so FOV is definitely important, and the reason why is because it'll allow you to do a lot more movement, tactics, and strategies, and also if you have a higher FOV, you can use a lot of guns better, such as shotguns and stuff like that, because you'll have more of a shoot at your target and stuff. So that's FOV if you're wondering, and it does help you for a lot of stuff, including movement, because you can see how much faster I move right now compared to how much I did before. So the next category I want to talk about is what's it called? Is movement and aiming. Now, look sensitivity. See, for example, 3. This is how fast my view moves and stuff like that. And I would say personally, it kind of all depends. I mean, I would say probably the best would probably be like maybe high or something like that. But it really all depends on who you are. But personally, me, I don't actually use these settings right here because there's something called ACLs, which is the second thing I want to talk about. But that's for more of the advanced players and stuff like that. Just for beginners, I would say the best settings would probably be, yeah, like something like this, because it's not too fast and it's also not too slow, how my aim is like better now. And then also something called response curve, is it determines how fast your view moves when you move the controller. So linear is the max one, meaning that I control exactly how my gun and all that moves. So that's how you can choose. And then look, dead zone is the same thing, but the smaller the dead zone, the better aim control you have, which is very important for your aiming and stuff like that, and depending on what weapons you use and all that. So yeah, so that's 2 of the categories. Okay, now next up is brightness. It's not as important as the other 2, but it's definitely important because, like, if you lower it, you definitely cannot see your targets as well. So it's always better to have higher up and stuff like that. And I just higher up as well, But I would say so far the main important things you need to worry about is FOV and movement and aiming. And then once you get those down, then you could probably move over to the ACLs. So actually, I know I said 4, but those are pretty much the most important things that you have to worry about and focus on as an Apex player. Everything else is just setting based and stuff like that. But I will talk about the ACLs, which is pretty much it allows you to completely control how you want your player to aim and this and that. And pretty much you just have to figure out a perfect balance between your aiming to see how, like, now my completely first gone. You see, that's because of the way that my aiming was set up and stuff like that. So now Apex is definitely a very pretty complex game. So obviously everybody varies in their play style and stuff like that. But overall, I would say just a very basic view of the most important things that you need to make sure to have as an Apex player. You should out of four aiming or something like that. And then also something that's important is you have to make sure that your FOV is definitely higher than 70. I think if you're a newer player, maybe something like 90 would be good to start off on, or maybe like maybe 90 like 6, like in the middle, because it's a perfect balance between like movement but also aiming at the same time. However, if you have a lot more superior movement, then you probably would want to do something above 100. This is for like the more advanced players and stuff like that. And this is just definitely something that people do need to know about as far as the most important things to have. And like I said, this is just kind of a basic rundown of the most important things I think you should have as an Apex player. This is my first time doing it, so I know it's not really all that. I mean, this wasn't done the best way, but I am trying my best, and I definitely know what I'm talking about and stuff like that, and I do know how to play this game. And you've seen in the many recordings that I've had that I know what I'm doing and stuff like that. I mean, I'm not like a pro player or anything, but I do have a pretty good understanding of how this game works and stuff. So yeah, that's pretty much the end of this recording slash video, and I'm gonna make a part two, pretty much talking about like how to. I mean, what is the best settings for aiming if you want to use ACLs and stuff like that, and then I'll pretty much go into a game or something like that, maybe to just show what I'm talking about, to show what I mean or something like that. So yeah, but other than that though, peace out. Alright, so I'm back for part two of the pretty much overview of just settings and stuff that you need. But what I want to really prioritize this video is something called ACLs, which pretty much allows you to choose how you want your aiming to be in your settings. So pretty much I'm just gonna give a basic rundown of everything what it means. So dead zone pretty much means it allows you to have better control. So for example, the lower you have, the better aim control. So for example, like if I show you right now, that wasn't the best, but pretty much it's a lot easier to have control of your aim. For example, like if you have like a 0-1, pretty much the recoil, there's no recoil, so the lower the better. However, unless you have like some type of stick drift or something, usually you should be fine. But you only have to be careful because you could get like some type of movement kind of drift where when you're not touching the button, the screen moves on its own. So unless you're fine with that, you should probably just make sure to keep adjusting it and get to the point where you're fine and stuff like that. So that's pretty much a rundown. So it's always better. And also these little, you see the little like spot right there, little line, that's pretty much where the average thing is. So anything above or below that would be considered like your own personal customizations. And then outer threshold is pretty much where how fast your screen can move, because there's stuff called extra yawn and pitch settings. And then the responsive curve is again how fast the screen moves whenever you move your controller and stuff like that. So that's pretty much what that is in a rundown. So the lower you have it, the higher it is, pretty much, like as y'all can see. Now, like let's say I go all the way down to like 0, right? It's gonna be completely raw, pretty much. So like you see, it's a lot more like shapy and stuff. So obviously, depending on who you are and stuff, these are obviously for the more advanced, because if you just run the basic aiming and movement settings, then you don't really have to worry about all this adjusting. But these are usually the best because you can choose exactly how you want your aiming to be. So the next step is just these things called yawn and pitch speed, which is pretty much just how fast you want your screen or your screen to look up or move right or left, and stuff like that. And then there's settings called extra and stuff like that. So pretty much what this one is that it allows you to move the screen faster depending on if you turn around and stuff like that. It's pretty complicated. I mean, not that complicated, but pretty much it says when stick input is at maximum, how much more quicker the view turns left or right. So pretty much, like for example, if I slide and I turn, it'll be a lot quicker than like, let's say if it was a lot lower, because like that's where the bar is. But like let's say I put it on like 170 or something, you see I'm not gonna really be able to do it as quickly, so it doesn't work that much better. But Yeah, pretty much. That's what it is. Actually, I think it does work better the lower it is. So actually, never mind. I just learned something. That's interesting. But yeah. Okay, actually, the higher it is, the worse it is. So yeah, that's interesting. But yeah, so that's pretty much that setting. And then let's call it extra yawn, and that's where this has to do with that. So the higher this is, now a lot of controllers don't need it any higher because see, this is where the bar is, and that's where it's usually supposed to be. But for me, I run it on this just because that's how I like my settings. And then for these, um, it's just talking about the extra young reaching full strength and stuff like that. And this is really all depending on just who you are and your playing style. This is pretty much what I have, but yeah, and then these are for ADSing because those are just for the natural movement and stuff like that. But these are actually for the ADSing and stuff. So it's the same thing, just how fast it turns left, how fast it goes up, and then same thing, how fast it turns right. But this one is different. It's like, for example, how fast it turns left and then right. So, for example, that's how fast it went. But like, let's just say I were to go a lot lower, it should be a little faster. See, it'll be. I mean, it's not that much quicker, but there is a difference. So that's pretty much what that's about because it's at maximum input since my stick. I mean, my right analog stick is going all the way around. And then finally, it's just the same thing, stick input at maximum, how fast it goes up and down. Usually you don't want it too high because you want to be able to balance the recoil out on your weapons
I'm out of
and
energy
stuff. So
ammo.
like, for example, you don't want it to go too high up. And then the final setting, which is arguably one of the most important ones, is ADS turning ramp up time, which is pretty much telling you how long do you want it. So for example, let's just say you're shooting a weapon that has like a lot of recoil, like a fully automatic weapon or something like that, right? If you have this setting up, you'll pretty much yeah, it'll allow you to pretty much keep the recoil steady on your weapon no matter how much the recoil is. Because like for example, look how much this goes up, right? You see? But yet it was able to stay completely still on the target because of that setting. That's what, in my opinion, personal opinion, one of the most important settings. And then, like I said, you don't really need this setting right here because it's just asking you how long until you want to apply it on any of your aiming. So that's pretty much just a rundown of all these ACL settings and stuff like that. And obviously, if you want to watch videos on like what you think, what are the best personally for some people, then you can watch those. Personally, me, I won't say that I have the best, but these are just the ones that I use, and also the thing with me is that I adjust mine a lot, so these are not the same settings that you probably would see later on, but these are just the basic rundown of pretty much what ACL settings are, and it's pretty much every form of aiming or just movement aspect that you want. And obviously, like as far as me running and sliding, that's outside of that. That's all dependent on FOV, like I was talking about. Because if you lower it, then you have lower movement, but the screen is more zoomed in, meaning that you can technically aim better at people. I mean, you can see them better, but you just have less movement. So again, if you're more of an advanced player, you probably want it to be higher because you want more movement to be able to do more stuff and contribute more. But it really all depends on your level of game and stuff like that and gameplay. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much a rundown of that. So I've already done a video talking about just the most important settings, and now I've done an ACO pretty much overview slash kind of like walkthrough tips and tricks on that. So now I'm just gonna use a game. I'm gonna play a game showing you all pretty much what I'm talking about with these settings and stuff. And then also, like I was telling you about, if you don't have ACLs, then this is just your settings. Same thing, responsive curve. It tells you, determines how the stick analog input is used to turn your view. And then the look dead zone, like I was telling you about, the movement and look, those all are dependent. But yeah, that's pretty much it though. So stay tuned for this gameplay I'm going to be telling you about. And then after that, this little thing is pretty much done for. I mean, there's more videos obviously talking about how to play and stuff like that. And just the overall best strategies to win. But yeah, other than that though, bye y'all. Stay tuned. But yeah, as y'all can see, I mean, I got the 2K damage badge. I'm level 128. I started playing Apex back in like season 2. I've been playing a lot of season 12 Apex. I have a 2,000 damage game. I mean, my highest kill game was 10 kills. So I'm pretty much like half of what you would call a quote unquote pro player, or like, like that level of Apex. But yeah, I mean, you see, I have 1,000 games played, over 1,000 games. So yeah, I mean, I definitely have a pretty good amount of knowledge about this game for sure, especially this season, considering this is the season where I've played the most and I've done the most. I've gotten my highest kills this season and I've gotten my highest damage game this season as well. So there you go. and whether or not you want to take my word on it. It's all dependent, of course, on opinions and just stuff like that. And like I said, everybody's playing style and just settings would be different, of course, but this is just what I think is personally the best and what people that play this game have to focus on, or the main aspects of gameplay for sure.